I started looking for part-time jobs, and I was like, what am I good at? Oh, I'm good at sales and SDR work. Maybe I'll get a part-time SDR gig. And I started interviewing for these companies. And I just felt like, man, this is not prideful. I try not to be prideful, but I felt like I knew more than a lot of the companies I was interviewing for. And I was like, I can't work for you. Because I felt like I knew more. But I was like, someone else would love that job, So what if I could teach someone else how to do it and help them get the job?
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Thinking Project podcast. Of course, this is your host, Dalton Jensen. And before I get into my guest, make sure that you're following me on all social media. It's real easy to follow me on social media. Everywhere you can go, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere is at Dalton K. Jensen. So make sure that you tune in. Make sure that you're following on social media. Make sure that you're subscribed, all that good stuff. Because again, this podcast isn't sponsored. The best way that you can support it is by sharing it with your friends, blowing this up. And if you're a business owner or salesperson, join the Sales Mastermind group. All of those links are in the description below. With that all being said, let me introduce Jaron Erickson, who is an amazing entrepreneur. He owns a school that teaches you how to sell. That's pretty much the best way to say it. Dojo is where you can go to redefine education. He helps you get a job. He helps you do that. There are cohorts every month, or at least bi-monthly. Anyway, that link will be in the description below. It's an amazing story of how he got there, of how he helps change people's lives every day by helping them break into tech sales or any sales in general, right? So with all that being said, please welcome Jaron Erickson. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side. We're live. All right, Jaron. Thanks for joining me, boss.
Yeah, man, dude. Super excited to be here, man. Like, only good things happen on this podcast, and
dude,
and I'm excited to be part of it. So,
dude, you're awesome. Very generous. You are the owner of Sales Dojo, or I guess it's just Dojo now, right?
Yeah, man. I honestly, a lot of people know it as Sales Dojo. We like to just call it Dojo, one for short, and two, like we don't want to limit ourselves to what we're going to do in the future. So,
it's a great idea. I love that. What made you think that? I mean, because like I said, I like that idea. I have a similar reason for why I named the podcast that, but tell me like where you came up with the idea, because I think it's fascinating that as people go through their careers and life, like they really get tied down to certain identities and they don't want to let those go. So like Sales Dojo, right? Like that's your baby. And then you're like, okay, we get rid of the sales. Like you drop the off of Facebook, right? What made you come up with that idea? Like, how did you come to that conclusion?
Dude, honestly, I can get into the story in just a little bit, like how we started, but I think what it comes from is just like, I think I'm a very visionary person. I see potential. And so with what we're doing in terms of like helping people gain access to things that they want to learn, one of those things being sales, specifically in like a tech B2B type of space. I think there's so many other things that people want to learn specifically within a realm of business. And so it really opens it up into, different hierarchies within the sales org, or maybe it's like a customer service side or like a virtual assistant side. So I think there's so much potential there that we just haven't wanted to put a cap on, what we're really capable of moving forward.
Dude, I love that. How do you think that a company like yours that kind of focuses on that kind of tech space, whether it's customer success, sales, maybe leadership, whatever, how do you feel like that is affecting maybe like traditional college?
Dude, that's a really good question. That's one that I answer. Like I try to figure that out in my own life because, I'm 24. I've been in school, I've been out of school, and then I've been back to school. And so I see a lot of value that comes through like a traditional college experience. And what we built through Dojo and just other sources of education, I don't think it should be ever built to replace anything like that. I think we should just open up greater opportunities to how people learn and what they want to learn. Because that's what we've specifically done is, we're teaching specific skill sets that aren't traditionally taught through a college system that lead to a great career path, specifically in like tech sales, right? And so if there's something else you want to do, like go actively search out the best way to learn that skill. And, you know, I think college has a lot of opportunities for that, but I also think that there's other great ways to learn and you shouldn't limit yourself.
Yeah. Okay, I need you to be real candid on this podcast, Jared, because you got a dope. What you're doing is real dope, and what you're doing, like, why I love it so much is because when you're in sales, right? Like, sales is you learn sales just by doing it. Like, you can only take the horse so far, right? And so because it's just a really cool thing. How do you feel like this stacks up with, like, how do you rank yourself, or how does this stack up with, because I'm sure you get these questions when you're placing people, or when you're like soliciting the dojo, right? How does this stack up with, like, let's say, like a professional sales degree from like Weber or UVU or something like that? Like, I mean, I'm sure you get that objection, like, right, why wouldn't I go here versus there or whatever?
Yeah, no, that's actually a cool question. And I'll tell you, the sales degree itself, it's actually somewhat new. Like it hasn't been it hasn't been around for a long time. But they turn it into like a 4-year degree, right? And so, yeah, so you 4 years to go learn sales through an institution. I think it's great. Like a lot of people will talk about school as it's not just education, but it's like connections as well. So I think there's a lot of value that can come through those types of connections, meeting with your professors. And again, there's always so much to learn. I think where Dojo stacks up is like we're a 4-week program. So honestly, you're probably going to get more out of your 4-year course than you can slam into 4 weeks. But we find a lot of success that through a 4-week program, we connect people to jobs paying over 70K that puts them on the track to make 100 plus K in a year, and then from there up. Right. So I think for a lot of sales reps, it's about getting in the door, learning from experience, and then working your way up. So if you want to get in, like we can help you do that. And so that's kind of been the niche. But yeah, I definitely don't compare us to a 4-year degree. We do not
Well,
cover everything they would.
but like, when I think of, so I'm allowed to be candid on this podcast because nobody can really cancel me. I don't really care because I'm too poor to cancel. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, have to get another job tomorrow? Probably, right? But dude, I've never been a fan of like the professional sales degree. It's always seemed very strange to me because I've hired people who have it, and I mean, we're just starting at the bottom. Like, they've gone through negotiation classes, or they've gone through all of this, but like, dude, when you get in front of a human being, when you get on the phone with another human, like, it's not the same. Like, you can't write those interactions in a textbook. You have to experience those yourself, right? And so it's like, you went 4 years. I think that's great. Yeah, like you said, like, networking, connections, being there, going through the experience. If you want to do that, that's cool. But like, you go 4 years and you don't sell anything. Like, that's what it feels like to me. It's like you didn't, like, I don't know, dude. You know what I mean? It's like, besides what you sold on like Craigslist or something, KSL, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know what you did. So for me, that's why it's cool. That's why I like what you're doing, because we're just going to do the basics. Like, you got 4 weeks. We're going to give you enough to, like, because I guess the other hard part, right, is like when you're interviewing for like an SDR and AE job, you kind of got to speak the lingo. You kind of got to, it's got to seem in the interview like you've been there before. And so you got to have that little bit to get in, right? But once you're there, like, every company trains different. Every company has their own way of doing things. Every software has its own nuances. So it's like, there's so much I can't teach you in
Yeah,
sales, right?
honestly, 100%. And sometimes it's even frustrating for us on certain ends. Like we have a lot of people, they're like, hey, I have like 5, 6 years of sales experience. They try to become an account executive in a tech company. Tech companies don't even consider them because they don't have
Mm-hmm.
like tech specific sales experience. Which,
Oh,
I
don't get me started on that.
yeah, we can talk about this on a different page, but a lot of times they really want you to start as like that SDR. Like they want you to
Yeah.
kind of put yourself through that ground. And it's very humbling for some, but if you get in early and then you work your way up, it's like that's one of the best things you could ever do for your career path in tech sales.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's a different subject if we want to talk about that, but I totally
Well, I did it. That's what happened to me. Like I felt like, oh, account executive, like, all right, that's cool. But you know what? It was kind of bittersweet, right? Like I got both sides of it. Like it was nice because when I was promoted to an account executive, like I was promoted pretty quickly. Like I was only an SDR for like 6 months. So, and I did well and it was fine. But, and then when I was an account executive and got an SDR, I knew where, how hard it, like I understood where it was. I had more empathy, right? So I guess it was good in that sense. So, but yeah, dude, but that's not what they pitched. That's not what the pitch was. It was like, you don't know sex sales, start at the bottom, because SDR that's a hard freaking job, dude. That's not an easy job.
Yeah, no, without
Because
doubt. Like,
yeah, go ahead.
just saying, like, it is a grind. Like at the end of the day, and I think it kind of gets like sometimes it's this glorious position that like you start working for a tech company, but hey, at the end of the day, like it is a hustle. But honestly, the skill set that you learn as an SDR is foundational for everything else that you will do in a sales career and outside of a sales career. Like the ability to talk to people who don't know who you are, don't know what you do, and probably don't want to talk to you. Build value for those people. Like you can do that, man. You can conquer the world.
Yeah, no, it's a grind, dude, and that's why it was always So that's why, like, when I became an account executive, it was like, all right, yeah, I'm kind of glad I went through it because now you can treat people like people. Not saying that, but because there's some AEs out there who just like don't care, right? And so for me, it always felt like a good experience because I was like, all right, now I get it. Like, and plus, my one of my big philosophies in sales is if like your leaders should have been there, right? Like, um, I've done everything that I'm asking you to do, right? Like there's nothing that an SDR has done that I haven't done. Send out 100 cold emails a day, make 50 phone calls. Someone hangs up the phone on me, right? Threatens to come find where I work and beat the shit out of me. Like I've been there, right? Like, okay. And so as a leader, you just have that much more credibility. But
Oh,
tech
I
is
love
just
that.
weird by itself.
Yeah, I think that concept though is so true. I had a mentor of mine call it, being in the trenches. Like being in the trenches with those you lead when it just you understand where they're coming from, and if you want to be mentored or taught by someone, like you want them to know that they've been there before, pretty much, right? And so they can help you get to where they are now, right? I don't know. I
Yeah,
love that concept though.
I agree. I think the SDR AE thing is a little weird for me though, bro. I got to tell you, I got to be honest. Here's why. The car business used to do this. They were
Huh?
called they were called liners and closers. So outside of the dealership, you'd have these liners, and they would qualify the customer. They would land them on a car, get everything perfect, and then they would leave and turn it over to a closer, right? And the industry, and maybe this is the difference between B2B and retail, right? And it could very well be, but it was always weird to me because I was like, I did liner and closer for a little bit, and I always lost money because because those nuances at the beginning of the deal, like when you first meet a customer, you catch something that you know what I mean, that's like valuable to you when you're trying to win this deal, right? And you don't have that when you do this. So actually and plus it just takes that much longer, right? Like I can't give you all the info. I got to send you over here. The car business doesn't do that anymore. In fact, there's some that just don't even, you go one person all the way, right? They call it cradle to grave. And so it's just weird, like not really a question there, but just my thoughts, because that was always weird to me. I guess you need it. Like, I mean, I get why you'd want that, like why you want your closers closing and your setters setting, right? But it's just funky.
No, I totally get that. I think seriously, like your best account executives though, like your best closers are probably your best setters as well at the end of the day. And it's
Right.
like, I really feel like the AEs that go hit, 150% quota every month. Yeah, it's because they're getting sets from the SDRs and then they're bringing in 2 to 3 of their own deals every month. And like that's
Right.
how
Right.
how you really, smash what your quota is. But
I agree with you, but that's why it's weird, right? Because you're like, all right, I'm an AE, cool, and you're like, all right, what does that mean? And they're like, I'm like, I get an SDR, and they're like, yeah, for sure, but you also have to go find your own, which is fine with me. Like I've always been a full cycle because that's just sales though. But I've always just been like, all right, that's kind of, but it's just kind of weird that why don't I just get my own stuff then? Right? Like I'll just get it myself. Then I don't care. No, I mean, I love that, but it's cool. So I kind of want to get back to this education piece though, because just the way that education is going right now, it needs a huge change, right? Because so even if you're talking about sales, like I think your program is perfect for sales. Like if you want to get into sales, you want to break into it, go to the dojo, go get a job. 4 weeks, pay whatever you got to pay, and then go earn your stripes, right? Um, but like the whole this 4 year college, and look, I'm not a college basher because like I've got 2 degrees, right? But at the same time, I wish that like because I'm also from the Midwest where like most of my high school didn't go to college and they go to trades and stuff like that. So I view sales as almost like a trade. You go to like a 4 week thing, learn it real quick, and then get the hell out of here and go sell something, right? And so it's just going to be really important in the future for companies like yours and like how we disrupt education.
I think it's cool you say that. Like, I think it's a huge focus of just something that I see as well. Like, just like the trends, the way things are going, like the access to information that we have now, it's never been like this before, right? Like you talk about 20, 30 years ago, like when my parents were in school, it's totally different. Like they were still in the library pulling books trying to write papers. And now it's like you can look up anything you want within a couple minutes, and then you have different video tutorials, like so much learning that takes place. Like if I want to watch a Harvard business class, I can look that up. I can probably go watch a Harvard business class if I want to learn from that, right? Um, but I think for me, like the one thing that will never be replaced in terms of education, I think is just experience. Just the experience and application that you can get. Like I think learning is so much more than just absorbing knowledge. But I think education is really finding ways to acquire knowledge and then being able to use it in the best way possible to serve other people. So
Yes. Yeah. Dude, I love that. And you bring up such a great point because I read this book that has nothing to do with. So I love one of my little background about me and one of my favorite phrases in sales and one of my hot topics is philosophy over psychology in sales. And like, look, I've read all the books, Influence, Tony. I love read all the psychology books. Um, but there's something to be said about the philosophy of sales and like how you actually stick to it, right? Because like they say in jiu-jitsu, right, a black belt is just a white belt who didn't quit, and that's literally like you like there's a path to black belt for everybody, right? And so where I was going with that is I read this book called the Circle of the Atonement, and it's an old philosophy book, but in there she makes one point that says we're past the point of data collection. So she's making an argument that like in philosophy and like religion, right, it's a scripture thing, and I don't want to get too far into that, but like people just sit there and like read and learn, right, to like become a better person. And the philosophy is now like we're past the point of data collection. Like you don't need any more info. Like I think, and what's funny is because when I read that, I thought about sales, and it was weird because it like you said, right? Like I can go watch a Harvard class, I can learn sales for free on YouTube, blah blah blah, right? All this stuff, and it's a great thing. But like, you could have watched 50 hours of YouTube on selling, but like you've never sold anything, and so I don't need data collectors. You know what I mean? I need people who like, builders, man.
builders, I love that concept. See, I think I'm
Yeah.
an action oriented like person. Like if I don't act on something, I feel like I kind of go insane. Um, but I personally feel like so much of my own growth has come through learning, like just mentoring and leaders or books, concepts I've learned. But the way that I've like really allowed that knowledge to stick and like grow and develop into something greater, I feel is like using it. So I love what you said. It's not just data collection. It feels like you have to use that data. You have to use that knowledge for something in order for it to one continue to progress, continue to build upon itself, but also just for your own sake of being able to actually accomplish anything. uh,
Right.
no action, there's
Yeah.
honestly no accomplishment.
I think that's why I think that's why we get in this, because there's two spectrums of the college argument, right? One side of the spectrum is, you know, you need education. You need, and by the way, both sides are true. Right? Like you need an education, you need to go to college, blah, 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 should be affordable. Cool. Then you have the other side that's like, we don't need it because we have all the knowledge. And what's funny
Mm,
is like, just to kind of cap off this idea is like, you have to like, eventually you have to get out and you have to start doing it. In fact, scholar, I can't remember what the root is, but old time, like old school, like back in like, you know, when all of this early 1800s, right? Only rich people could like be scholars. Like a
mm,
Rhodes Scholar was somebody who'd finished their career and then they were learning, right? Then they had time to like learn and grow and stuff. And so it's funny because like now it's the opposite. Like to get, which is fun. Like I'm not saying education is bad or anything, but it's just it's kind of flipped how we do this. Now we need people who like have some kind of competence to like come in, and it's just funny because what is that definition? Do you need a 4-year degree to be competent, or do you need 4 weeks and a and an apprenticeship to be competent? Right? Like interesting. So let me ask you this: you started Dojo, 24, dude, really impressive. You guys have been going for a year or two, right?
yeah, coming up on 2 years. Yeah.
Dude, very, very cool, very impressive. What made you and this isn't meant in any way other than to like get inside your brain and
Yeah,
figure
let's
out
do
like your story, dude. But what made you think at 22, after maybe being an SDR and all these things, that you could start a sales school and get to where you are right now? Because like one of the things is like imposter syndrome, right? Like I had, when I started my course, I had like a decade of sales training, and when I went into the training world, I was like, I should not be here, bro. I'm trying to compete with like all these people, and I was so not in a condescending way, but I just want to get, you know what I mean? I want to get the story. But like, what made you think like, bro, I got this, I can do this, step aside?
Dude, I love that you say that. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a cool story, I guess, for me. Like, I guess where it started was like number one, I was going to school. Like, I was going to UVU, Utah Valley, and I was trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with my career. I guess I was like, I don't even know what I want to study. Like, why am I here? Like, I just had no idea where to go. Um, and so, what do I do when I don't really know what to do? I go talk to my dad. I'm like, Dad, like, help me out here. And my dad worked for a tech company out of San Francisco called Carta. Um,
Oh yeah,
and
okay.
yeah, really big. I think they're like an $8 billion company now, which is crazy. But so my dad worked at Carta at the time, and he's like, Jared, like, you should go work for one of these tech companies in Silicon Slopes. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, like you should go. I was like, I never thought that was a possibility for me. And I'm like, I'm not really a
Mhm.
computer guy. Like, I don't know if I'd really fit in this tech industry or whatever. He's like,
Right.
dude, you could do sales. I was like, okay, like I'll try it. You know, I didn't know, I didn't have any experience or anything. So I asked my dad. I was like, hey, Dad, what are the two best companies in Utah right now? I'm gonna go work for one of them. Um, and I ended up interviewing at a couple companies, and I got interviewed at Divvy at the time, and
Cool.
Divvy hired me for some reason. They like decided to hire me and bring me on as an SDR. And
Heck yeah, dude.
I had no idea what I was doing. I just showed up. I'm like, I'm ready to rock and roll. Like, I'll work out. I'll outwork anyone. Let me learn what I need to do. Let's go.
Hmm.
So I ended up riding out this Divvy rocket ship, you could say, and I was there for 18 months. Now, what happened during that 18 months was, you know, I'd been promoted 4 different times, and started to work my way up the ladder. I was making really good money, had the opportunity to go be an AE, and it just kind of hit me. Like Divvy, they just got acquired by Bill. I got an equity check in the mail. I was like, this is unbelievable, this ride that I just been on. And I just felt like, you know, why don't more people do this? Like I really am not anything special. Like I'm not this anomaly. I was like, why
Sure.
don't more people get into tech sales and have a similar experience that I had? I felt like I just got really, really lucky in a lot of ways. Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of where it started, number one. And then I ended up leaving Divvy and going back to school because I was like, I don't know, like I'm gonna
Cool.
try something new. And I started looking for part-time jobs, and I was like, what am I good at? Oh, I'm good at sales. I'm good at SDR work. Maybe I'll get a part-time SDR gig. And started interviewing for these companies. And I just felt like, man, this is not prideful. I try not to be prideful of it, but I felt like I knew more than a lot of the companies I was interviewing for. And I was like, I can't work for you. I can't work for you because I felt like I knew more. But I was like, someone else would love that job. So what if I could teach someone else how to do it and help them get the job instead of me, you know? And so we just kind of went for it, man. Like we ran our first cohort, which was my sister, a friend of mine, and someone that we had like convinced to try it. And all three of them got hired. All three got hired at tech,
Wow.
and it was just like, oh my gosh, like this works. And we're like, let's try it again. So we do another cohort, and people start getting hired. We're like, let's charge for it. Charged for it. People signed up. People got hired, and it was just like, I can't believe this actually works. Like we've done it, and we've done a good job. And that was the coolest thing is like people became top performers at their company within a couple months, and it was just like, man, you don't need to have X amount of years of experience. You just got to be really good at what you do. And
Yeah.
it was cool to see people like learn the skills they needed through the course and then like go tackle it at a career. So I don't know, kind of cool.
Very,
But
very cool. Very cool. Very impressive. I love that. And so, no, and by the way, very, very like great answer because I think a lot of people feel like that. Like I felt like that. Like I remember interviewing at a company that I won't name, and I remember getting into an argument with the hiring manager. They made me interview with a sales manager, right? And we got into we like full blown like I was arguing with the dude. We were like yelling at each other over the phone, and like get because I was like he was trying to check me, and I was like, dude, you don't understand. Like I've sold like the product you're telling me that you sell and that I would be selling for, or that wouldn't even be selling. I'd just be setting appointments for you, right? That product, I have sold used cars to CEOs at tech companies that are more money than this in less time. I'm like, so I get it. Like, I'm not saying I can't learn and there's not nuances, right? But if you're telling me that I don't have the experience and that I don't know what that's like, you're high, dude. And so we went back and forth. And I was like, dude, I was like, I was just done. I was like, I don't need this, bro. I'll keep making it. I was like, and by the way, the money, I was like, I'm willing to take a pay cut to learn it because I want to change industries because I had to, right? So I was like, I'm willing to do that, but bro, don't tell me that I can't do this or that you think I can't do this because I was like, I'll make more money. Like he was trying to, like I was a car salesman and he was trying to check me, and I was like, bro, I'll just make more money like than you, and I'll be a sleazy car salesman, and I'll make more money than you. We got to a fight. I was just so pissed, dude. I was like, oh my gosh. And so like, if you can give somebody that confidence to go into one of those conversations and not get into an argument like I did, um, that's pretty cool though. It's pretty cool. I don't know. I was a little that was he caught me on a bad day too. I probably shouldn't have taken that interview that day because there was a bunch of other crap that went on. But anyway, it was wild though, dude. It was crazy. And here's the other cool thing about what you said, right? So people kept getting hired. Then you charged. They got hired some more. They kept going. What I think is really cool about that is because one of my questions coming into this interview was about credibility. Like, how did you build credibility? And that's it. That's all you need, right? Like, dude, we hire people. Like, I have a better placement rate than colleges in Utah do. Like, but for real, I have a better job placement rating than half of these schools do, dog.
it, it it's a
And I'm
good
sure that
question.
changes when you get up to their numbers, but yeah.
It is a cool question. Like, and I still get asked that, like, what makes you credible? Like, if I'm on a call and hey, like, you have reason to question me. Like, I'm 24. I still have a ton to learn, like without a doubt. Like you want to, our company's so imperfect, but I feel like a lot of that credibility has come from like look at the results. Go look at the results and let them speak for themselves. And it's like we're just good at what we do. And that's sometimes the best thing I can say is like, you know, we're just really good
Yeah.
at what we do and you can take it for what
And,
it
and
is.
you and it's mainly SDRs, right? You just help people break in like SDRs, or do you do AEs too, or like what else?
We specifically focus on like an SDR niche. Like that's typically where
Okay,
people
cool.
are able to kind of break into that type of sector.
Yeah. What I think is cool about that too is like you also don't try to like punch above your weight. And by the way, there'd be nothing wrong with that anyway, because what's an AE other than a person who like you just add one step to the deal, dude.
Yeah.
You know, but I think that's cool too because you're like, look, hey, I'm not trained, and that's what I did. Like I'm when I started, like I have this little sales mastermind group, and that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, dude, if you're an enterprise AE working at Domo, don't come join my group. Like it's not worth it for you, dog. But like, you know what I mean? Like I just know who I serve. Like I don't. That's not who I. I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy to teach an enterprise AE at Qualtrics how to close Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
I'm the guy who takes small business owners who are shaking in their boots. They've never closed a deal and they don't even know what sales means, and to get their company up to like $1 million a year with them, right? Because 0 to 1 is all you. It's got to be you. It's got to be the right. So I can help you do that, right? Past that, yeah, go find Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone. They'll help you out, dog. But like, so I think it's cool too that like you guys also, you know who you serve, man. And there's nothing, and that's great. By the way, the world needs SDRs. The world needs all of that. I think some people kind of get, they're kind of like, well, I could teach anybody, and I'm sure, but it's like that whole thing that's like, if you serve everybody, no, you serve no one, right, kind of thing.
Mm.
And so that's also what I think is really impressive because, yeah, dude, I think SDR is a really hard job, but it's not because we both done it, right? It's not rocket science. Like, if you got a strong chin and you can take a couple hits, I think you'll be okay. We can teach you the rest, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And honestly, like yes, Dojo's been cool and it's been cool like work with tech companies, but like the best part about everything we do is like the stories that come from it. Like the whole mission behind why Dojo was started, like it was really to change lives because I felt like my life changed through my ride with Divi. I just being able to work at an amazing company with amazing leaders and mentors, like that was foundational for anything else that I'll do. And so I feel like there's a lot of good that can come through working within like the tech industry. Because if you combine high pay and high growth, which is the tech company, it really attracts high caliber people. Um, and so if you can surround yourself with that type of person, like one, you're going to become that type of person. So I really think that the whole purpose behind Dojo is just to try to help more people access better career paths, access better jobs, and kind of break this stigma like, hey, look, so what you didn't go to college? I don't care. You can go kick butt at a tech company if you put in the work now, right? So just helping people raise their vision of what they're capable of is a huge pillar of what we focus on. And honestly, I don't know if Dojo would have lasted if it wasn't for the amazing students we've had because I feel like I gain a lot of inspiration, determination, and grit just from hearing their stories. Right? Like I don't feel like I've been through anything compared to what a lot of these other people have gone through. I'm like, if they can do it, I can do it, and keep going together.
Yeah, you said like what they've gone through, like to get to this point, or like you meet some people late in their career. Like, tell me more.
Dude, honestly, early on, I thought we'd be working with a lot of people maybe like me. Hey, we're going to school, kind of this mid 20s. But man, we've worked with so many different people. Like we've worked with people from like the construction industry who've been there, who've got family and kids, and have helped them triple their income. Right? We've helped women who are like single moms. Get back into the workforce and take care of a family. And then just helping other like individuals who feel like they've kind of been beat down, told that they wouldn't be good, and anything like stuck in some retail job or something like that, and helping gain access and almost like spark that confidence again. Like, hey, you can do whatever the heck you want, right? But you just got to do the work. So honestly, that's been the coolest part is the wide range of people we've worked with. Like, I thought it'd be a smaller niche, but it has been amazing just to see how many people can benefit from like self progression, learning a sales skill set, and accessing like the tech type of thing.
Dude, that's very cool. I had a very similar experience with my sales mastermind group. I thought it was going to be a lot of like bros, right?
Yeah.
Crazy enough, a lot of stay-at-home moms, like a lot of single moms, like a lot of womenpreneurs, which is, by the way, which is great. I'm a girl dad. I like would consider myself a feminist. Love it. But I wasn't expecting it. But it's been great. Like we took it and and I'm doing really good with it. But when you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, dude, that's crazy. And what's even, yeah, I mean, like, good for you getting these people into tech, because that was always the most frustrating thing for me. Like, I remember I had an SDR at one of these companies I worked at. He killed it in retail. When I left, like he was working at like Zoomies, dude. Like, did you know that? And by the way, did you know most of these retail shops are actually commissioned? Like Buckle, Zoomies, like they're commissioned. Did you know that?
Dude, I've heard the stories, man. I think it's wrong. I
yeah, but it's wild though, dude. You would never think that, right? But like once you know that, you're like, whoa, dude, these guys are actually like hustlers. You know what I mean? Like they're actually like good. You know what I mean? And so like I remember like this guy, and he came on, crushed it as an SDR, like killed it. And when I left, I was like, bro, you need to come with me. Come with me, be my SDR. You and I, same team again. We'll just kill it here. And he was like, all right, cool. So I sent, and they wouldn't hire him because he didn't have a college degree. Dude, I'm like, I remember walking up that day to the hiring manager, and I was like, bro, I get it. You're not the person who made the rule. I was like, but we just lost a slayer. We lost, and we're not going to get him back either. I was like, that's a dumb rule. I was like, what are you going to do? Fire me? I was like, I'll have a job tomorrow. Anyway, it was dumb. But do you ever get that? Do you ever like, I mean, they go through your thing, so I guess you could kind of like convince a manager, you're like, it's kind of like a degree.
Yeah, honestly,
you got a degree from the dojo, dog.
Hey, that would actually be pretty sick. I'm a fan of that.
That would be dope.
But there are still companies like that. Like they say, like, hey, you have to have a bachelor's degree or we won't interview you. And if we ever talk, like, I'll go to my grave and say, like, you're missing out on some of the best people I've ever met, right? And that's up to them. And we also, like, something we teach our students as well. Like, we don't tell them where to go. Like, we have a lot of companies who will reach out wanting to hire these graduates, right? And we kind of vet these companies. Like, we have to make sure they pay well, they have good growth opportunities for them, and they have good leadership, right? But we don't tell people where to go. But what we do tell them to look for is like, hey, when you're interviewing with a company, like, yes, they're interviewing you, but like, you also got to kind of interview them. Like, you got to figure out where you feel like you fit. And, if a company doesn't believe in you for some reason, go to a different company that actually sees your potential and go crush it there. So I don't know. I think it's tough. I think there's a lot of value to that, but
how do you teach that to somebody? Like in your example, you had the construction guy stay at home. How do you teach that, bro? Because that's scary, dude. If you're like, maybe I'll just take this job because I need it, right? But yeah, Jaron told me. But like, how do you know what I mean? Because like, it's kind of like, but Jaron, yeah. But like, how do you help them do that? Because that's big, dude. I mean, you're right. 100% you're right. But that's a scary conversation to have, dog.
Dude, that's a good question. Because I think what it is, like, if you were able to like watch an individual like come through the whole course, like the 4 weeks we have them, we've interviewed all of our students, like so many of our students after the course is completed. And the main theme that they say is, I feel more confident. And I'm like, if out of everything they take away from the course, sales skills, like better LinkedIn presence, strategy, whatever, I honestly think confidence is the biggest key. And so we've had a lot of these reps, like they know that they're good. They know they now have options and they finally believe in themselves again. And once that fire's lit, I think they can go into an interview with a little bit of swagger and just like they feel it. It's not something you have to teach them because I can't give you confidence. You got to see it in yourself. And I think a lot of them figure it out through like the hard work they put in during the course.
Dude, you say hard work during the course, and I kind of checked like those professional sales degrees. What kind of, you don't have to tell me everything, but like the kind of like the high level 30,000 foot view, like what do you put people through?
Yeah, dude, good question. So like we got our curriculum. Like there's a lot of sales training companies out there. Like I'm not saying we're like this anomaly, right? But something we've seen is a lot of companies will be like, "Hey, watch this video, like read this article, remember to do this." And there's not a lot of application that takes place. So it's just like, if I want to get better at golf, I can watch hundreds of golf videos on TikTok or on Instagram and how-to videos. But kind of back to this concept of action, like the only way you can get better at sales is by actually applying the skills that you learn. So one of our biggest keys to success, I'd say, is we do a lot of the dirty work and we do a lot of role plays. Like we teach a skill and then we practice that skill over and over and over. We call it like at bat. Like the more at bats you get, the better you are. And so instead of just learning these principles, like we actually practice them where the students start to like make mistakes. Like we're not very good week one, but they start to tweak it themselves. They start to learn more, and then they start to feel the progression take place. And then I feel like our growth is pretty exponential from there.
Oh, I love that, dude. And by the way, role plays are great. Everybody hates them, but they're good, dude. In fact, when I hire salespeople, I tell them like, hey, like it's like a 30-minute interview. Like I don't do long interviews. I go 15 minutes. You and I are going to chat. The last 15 minutes, we're going to role. Like I'm going to ask you some questions and like, we're going to role play. That's my 30. I don't, because like when I was in the car dealership, I was always like, I would be like this. And then I'd be like, all right, cool. So let me ask you a question. Customer comes up to you and says, it's the car's too much money. What do you say? And they just freeze. And I'm like, I'm just, you know what I mean? And then you got to like know what you're looking for as a manager. In that case, for me, obviously they don't know anything, right? And that's the point. I just kind of want to see if their natural instinct is to like figure out what else, you know what I mean? Like, are you going to say, okay, cool, see you later? Or are you going to be like, well, all right, hold on. You know what I mean? Or are you going to like try, right? Because what is the customer's cars, tech, machines, digital marketing? What is the customer supposed to do? They're not going to hand you a blank check, dog, right? we're going to have to negotiate a little bit, right? And so I love role playing even in interviews. Like I'll just hit somebody right there, because it's.
I'm a fan of that. Like we actually, this is like secret sauce stuff right here, but something we tell them, like we tell our grads is like, hey, when you go to your interview, you should say, hey, I've researched your company. I drafted a pitch that I've been practicing. Can I do a role play with you? Like we want our grads to ask the hiring manager if they can do a role play. And I'm like, dude, that's an automatic job right there. I don't know if that's true. That's what I believe, because like if you're someone to go in there, hey, I've done the research, I've done the work, here's my pitch, how can I do better? What else do you want from a rep, right? So
yeah, I mean
yeah. Try that. I bet you get a job.
Well, you should though. I think it's always funny. Interview, yeah. The interviewing world is dumb in sales too. Like that. By the way, that's been my whole career. I was an accountant for like 2 weeks. So I actually got my bachelor's in accounting, MBA in finance, and I don't do any of those. But with those, like, you got to be really technical, right? So, like, of course, I'm going to get a quiz. Like, I plan accounting jobs. They're going to give you tests and stuff like that because you got to know. Because, like, if you mess up in accounting, that's a lawsuit, right?
Yeah.
But in sales, so you got to make sure you know who you're dealing with in accounting, right? But in sales, dude, that's why I didn't even look at people's resumes. Like, I don't, construction worker, stay at home mom, plumber. I don't care. Like, let me ask you some questions, and see. I actually trained a few like electrician companies in sales. Like, I took them through sales training. Because we've all been there, dude. We've all had that electrician who doesn't know how to talk about money, dude, and it's the most uncomfortable conversation you've ever heard in your life, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, your breaker's out. I'm like, all right, cool, dude. I trust you because I don't know dick about a breaker. How much is it going to cost? And he goes, and the electrician goes, well, it kind of maybe might cost $500, but if you kind of want to say, maybe I'll do it for $400 if you just make me stop talking right now. You know what I mean? It's like wild, dude. So I've done that a couple times because you just it's that delivery, man. It's like you'll close 90% of deals if you can just deliver that right, dude. You'll get 90. You'll get a job just because you can deliver it. Like, I'm not really, like, most hiring managers aren't really looking for like perfection, or like, I don't really care that, because we're in an interview. Like, I don't really care if you don't know the product that well. But I need to see like a delivery. I need to, like, you could tell me everything wrong. Like, some people even just give you a fake company and they're just like, I don't want you to, like, because they don't want you to like get nervous about, you know, whatever. Right. But I mean, well, yours is great. I mean, obviously do that. But like, I've just been in situations where companies will be like, look, we don't want you to like stress about learning everything about this. So here's a fake company. Just like, we just want to see you deliver it. And I think that's really cool, dude. Bro, you gotta, it's dope what you're doing, man. I think it's killer. I think more people need that too. Cause I feel the same way. Like, I'm doing like an appointment, like a staffing thing where we go find people and set appointments. And I'm like, dude, we can teach anybody how to set appointments. And you can really change somebody's life. Cause I was always of the opinion, like, look, if you saw $100 bill across the street floating in the wind, you would run over there and grab it, right? So why? So because people always be like, well, it's just not enough money. And I go, right. But if you saw a $20 bill under a rock on the sidewalk, you'd bend over, pick it up. I'm telling you that setting appointments is that easy, and you can make more than $20. So come on, let's go. Like, don't. Yeah. And,
well, dude, I appreciate that. I appreciate that a ton. Like, I don't know,
bro.
It's cool experience. So.
Dude, it's just, I know I'm a fanboy, bro. I love it because it's just really cool to see this, because that's something I'm so passionate about, is like disrupting the education system, because so many people don't have access to this. And then, and like, especially in sales, like, it's really hard, or excuse me, let me reverse it. It's really easy to find a shitty sales trainer who will just take all your money and you didn't learn anything. Do you know what I'm saying? And so, like, the good ones who can actually like I help place people, like, shoot, some of my students even work for me. I just go, I'll hire you because I got people who need salespeople. So I'll just, you know, whatever. Right. So like, the people like that, is just like, the sales course and training industry is just something I'm super passionate about, because it's full of people who just want a quick buck. And if you don't know anything, you get roped in. And so I always try to champion people who like actually have substance behind what they're doing, dude. And so, because I mean, you've seen it, right? Like, when you were looking at what kind of sales training did you look up before you went to Divi? Did you like do any kind of research, or were you just like, hey, I'm at Divi now?
No, man. I feel like I got in pretty early. Like,
cool.
I feel like there was a buzz around the tech world, and I got in pretty early, and they just took me. Like,
yeah. But did you do any like sales training, like on your own, or like try to find anything on your own?
Dude, honestly, no. And like,
all right, hey, that's good though. That's all right.
One, I don't think it was quite as competitive as it is now, and two, I probably was like still this college kid trying to figure things out. I was like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna show up. You know, I did my research. I kind of knew what I had, but like, you know, I definitely could have prepared more. And it ended up being a very fortunate opportunity.
Hey, but you know what, man? Some of the best opportunities, like, so I've done this podcast for 2.5 years. I've interviewed over 250, 260 entrepreneurs,
Cool.
300 hours of interviews. Let me tell you, there's one common denominator that I've seen in a successful venture, and it's not in any book, but this is it. It was an accident. I'm not joking. They were like your story, right? Like, not an accident, but you were like, oh, let's just try it. My sister said she'd do it, so all right, I'll just do my sister. My buddy didn't have anything going on. Let's try it, right? Like, it wasn't like there's some businesses that start like with a business plan, but the best ones that I've seen and I've interviewed all been like, I don't know if this is going to work, dog, but we're just going to try it. And if it doesn't work, then Mo Betta's.
Dude,
You ever been there?
Dude, you're getting me fired up.
I interviewed Chemo Mac, who's the founder. Chemo and Kalani Mac founded Mo Betta's in Bountiful, Utah. Chemo moved from Hawaii. He was a bus driver in Hawaii, moved from Hawaii to Bountiful, sold his house in Hawaii, all the equity that he had in his house from selling in Hawaii, bought his house, the rest of the equity dumped into Mo Betta's. Because he was like, I'll just cook what I cook at home.
Wow.
Mo Betta's is comfort food because I'm Hawaiian. That what he served at Mo Betta's is what you find at a Hawaiian barbecue. Anyway, it was just like it was just like this. You know, he was like, "Oh, I'm a bus driver. I cook food. I'll just cook it for somebody else." Like, it wasn't like this crazy big business plan. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, and maybe an accident. Maybe saying it was an accident is too like downplays it a little too much. But it's the only word that I can think of right now on this episode to like talk about the gravity of the situation, which was like Chemo did not, like, there was nothing written down that they were going to be 50 stores, tons of different states, ended up getting selling a bunch of equity to the Savory and all these things, right? Like, it was just crazy, dude. And so your story is just awesome. And that's everybody else's story, right? Like, I'll just go to this tech company, right? Like, all right, Jaron says you can do it. All right, let's do it. And then it ends up being the best thing ever. Like, the moves that make the most sense are the ones that just fall right there. They just like, oh shit, there it is.
Man. Well, dude, I appreciate that. And honestly, a concept I've really thought about and probably something I really try to work on, because I make it such a big focus because I'm probably not the best at it all the time, but just like imperfect action. Just, being willing to try something, being willing to fail. Because honestly, I think, one, failure is one of the best teachers out there. I think that we should be able to fail more. Obviously, that's a different subject. But also, like, if you sat me down 2-3 years ago and you're like, hey, Jaron, let's come up with a business idea. Like, there's no way I would ever come up with the concept of Dojo. Ever. Right. But
you're right.
Once you started working in a job, taking action, like, you start learning more. And so you have to be willing to move forward in order to learn new skills, open your vision, see new possibilities. So honestly, some of my greatest advice for people that want to be an entrepreneur is, go get a job, go do something, go work, because like, just sitting around, you don't always get the ideas. You have to be moving in order for new opportunities to come.
Dude, crazy that you said that, because there's a super interesting statistic and this is like legit. So we've all heard of the people who like drop out of college and start a business and like Facebook, right? Yeah. But crazy enough, those are right. And we all know this. This isn't the news, right? That's an outlier. That's not the news. The crazy statistic is when you start a business so like, people who start a business after being in the workforce for 10 plus years and after their age of 30, that business venture has a 90% chance of success. Wow. If you start a business right out of college or drop out of college and start it, you have a 10% chance of success. So you actually, if you want to be an entrepreneur, actually the best advice that you could give somebody is to go into the workforce, find mentors, grow with people, get experience, and then go start.
Mm.
You have that there's a, and it's a 180% swing that you'll
Mm.
succeed if you do it that way. Cause right? Like, what's going on, dude.
Yeah. No,
Wild.
I've seen that. And obviously don't have 10 years of experience, but I do feel like everything I've done, like the way I view things, the way we run things was so foundational for my manager, like, who just taught me so much. I watched Divi's leadership team, like their revenue team, make decisions and like why they chose to make those decisions. And I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, like I'm obviously have not had to make the
Well,
same decisions they've had, but it's been cool.
Well, yeah, and that wasn't a slight to you because you still did that though, right? Like it was like I'm not going to start an SDR company because I read that being an SDR is easy and it's just setting appointments, right? Like you were in it, right? So there's a lot to be said for that. And so you go like, all right, I've been here, now I can do it, and it's successful because because you look at your students, right? I've never been in your class, but I'm sure you look at your students right there and you're like, no, I'm not telling you this because like I think it works. I'm telling you this because here's a recorded phone call of me doing what I just told you to do. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so dude, it's great, bro. I keep killing it. Before I let you go, cause this was an amazing interview and you've been more than generous with your time. Tell everybody how they can find you, when the next cohort is, if they're listening to this and want to start, like, how do they get it, dog?
Man, well, number one, thanks for having me, man. Seriously, I love what you're doing. I love the message that you share, just, helping people learn new things and honestly, like, kind of push themselves in new ways. So, but I don't know if you know anyone, like if it's you or if you know anyone that wants to access like a better career or kind of break into a growing tech industry, like one of the best ways is to obviously go to our website. It's just salesdojo.com, to kind of learn a little bit more about what we're doing. Our next cohort, we actually run one cohort every month. So we start typically at the beginning of each month for our cohorts. We actually have a limited number of headcounts. So we try to get those capped out before and then put a lock on it and then push people to the next cohort. So, but if you want to apply, you can actually apply through the Dojo website. And then if you put Dalton's name, like you heard it on this podcast, I'll reach out personally instead of someone else on our team and we can kind of chat it up and learn a little more. So that's probably the best way
Dope,
to
dude.
get in touch with us. So
Dope, man. I appreciate it, boss. Thank you so much.
Dalton, thanks for having me, man. Love what you do. And I think you're the man.